Tamara Johansen, also known as TJ, is a first lieutenant in the United States Air Force and a field medic in the Stargate Program. She is a member of the team sent and later trapped aboard the ancient vessel Destiny. Tamara Johansen was born sometime in 1983 and came from a modest background. She has both surviving parents and a sister. Her father worked as a tailor. He actually taught her how to do stitches after he stitched himself in an injury. He has since retired. Johansen used to go camping with her father in the Olympic Peninsula. She is also an aunt to both of her sister's children and is quite fond of them. At some point, she trained to become an officer in the United States Air Force and became assigned to the Stargate Program, where by 2009, she would be assigned to the Icarus base, working under Dr. Sims, the lead medic at the base. She once noted that she saw at least one gunshot suicide. She had an affair with her commanding officer, Colonel Everett Young, a married man. After some time, she decided to end it and to avoid any further complications. The two would later conceive a child. 2009. One night, the base was under attack by the Lucian Alliance. The attack fatally injured Dr. Sims, despite her attempts to save him. After they evacuated to the other end of the 9th Chevron address, she and around 80 others arrived on Destiny and was cut off from Earth. Since Sims died, the responsibilities of becoming the lead field medic fell into her hands. Immediately, she tended to Colonel Everett Young after he arrived unconscious, and later to Senator Alan Armstrong after he collapsed from internal bleeding, which accelerated from the warfarin from his heart medication. While a team was sent to a desert planet to find lime to repair the ship's life support, she looked after Young, who at that time was occupied by Colonel David Telford. He put Young's body through more physical stress, forcing her to sedate him until Young returned to his own body. A day after repairing the life support, Colonel Everett Young officially reinstated her as a medic. She tended to Dr. Nicholas Rush after he collapsed from a nervous breakdown, caused by caffeine withdrawal when the ship's power reserves failed. After a while, the ship was sent to an unalterable course to a star. Young chose her and Lieutenant Matthew Scott as the two people in charge of the other 15 on Destiny's last remaining ancient shuttle, and to live on another planet. After the shuttle left, TJ considered those stuck on Destiny as lucky, as they faced the prospect of spending the rest of their lives on a desolate planet. When it was revealed that Destiny went to the star to refuel, the shuttle returned in relatively one piece. After more time passed, Lieutenant Matthew Scott and Colonel Everett Young went to an ice planet to replenish their water supply after half of their reserves mysteriously disappeared by what would later turn out to be the dust bug swarm Scott inadvertently brought back from the desert planet. Young appointed TJ in charge of the Destiny expedition during his absence. Despite this, she looked at Dr. Nicholas Rush and others for guidance. She discovered the dust bugs and planned to rid them after they took more water and severely wounded Corporal Gorman. She successfully lured them to a water barrel and sent them to Hoth. However, despite her best efforts of saving Gorman, he later succumbed to his injuries. When an International Oversight Advisory delegation enacted a plan in an attempt to return the Destiny expedition home, Sergeant Hunter Riley was seriously wounded whilst attempting to fix a leaking pipe that ignited. TJ attended to his injuries, though due to the severity he was touch and go. Riley would eventually recover. Weeks later, Colonel Everett Young wanted her to perform psychiatric evaluations on the crew to determine their mental status. After questioning a few reluctant volunteers, news of this spread, and the others attempted to avoid being questioned by her about how they were coping. Those that attended the evaluations said something calmly or angrily, as shown by Dr. Jeremy Franklin and Dr. Lisa Park. After Sergeant Spencer was found dead, TJ determined when he died. Until then, she didn't know about Spencer's addiction to sleeping pills, and believed that she could have helped him had she known about it. She also believed his death to be a result of a suicide, even though the gun wasn't found. When a trial was made in order to determine Colonel Everett Young's guilt or innocence after the weapon was found in his quarters, TJ still believed the death was a suicide, but pointed out with the lack of forensic equipment, they can't prove it. Ultimately, Spencer's death was ruled a suicide after finding Kino footage with a suicide note. Later, she attended to Dr. Jeremy Franklin after he sat on the Destiny interface chair, and he was left in a catatonic state. Following the incident where Colonel Everett Young abandoned Dr. Nicholas Rush on a planet, she offered to talk to Young about it, but he refused. After Young used the long-range communication device, only to be sent to an alien ship, TJ believed this was in his imagination. The tale was revealed to have actually happened. The aliens were alerted to Destiny's location and started an alien attack. After it subsided, TJ tended to the wounded. She later talked to Robert Kane, who earlier heard that Lieutenant Vanessa James had a crush on him, and wondered if he would pursue a relationship with her. He didn't want one, but reserved the right to change his mind. Unknown to her after the initial attack and the return of Dr. Nicholas Rush, several civilians were planning to overthrow Colonel Everett Young. When the mutiny initiated, TJ was in the hydroponics lab checking for any plants with medical purposes. The lab was part of the civilian side after Rush locked both the civilians and the military in separate parts of the ship. After learning of the mutiny, she and Airman Dunning, who was also in the wrong place at the wrong time, were disarmed and sent back to a makeshift brig. After some time, the aliens returned and started attacking again. After Young's people took back the ship, and learning of the tracking implants in Rush's chest, TJ aided Dr. Brightman in removing it. Destiny later jumped into FTL out of sight of the aliens again. Because the mutiny was about the civilians wanting to take some power and be recognized, Colonel Everett Young ordered his people, including TJ, to make an effort reconciling with them. When Destiny dropped out of FTL to an uncharted star system, TJ began to display symptoms such as lightheadedness, vomiting, and exhaustion. With many people voicing their concerns that she was becoming ill, TJ joined a team as part of a reconnaissance mission to check out the only planet in the system. After declaring it safe and knowing Destiny would take about a month until it would enter FTL again, TJ was one of many who volunteered to stay on the planet during the 4 weeks. Chloe Armstrong was the first person to find out about her condition. By the time Destiny was within range again, she was about 15 weeks pregnant. She wanted to stay on the planet rather than going back to Destiny, believing that her baby would have a better life on the planet than going back to the ship. However, under Young's orders, who was not aware of her condition, she was forced to return to Destiny. Many others also wanted to stay behind, including Lieutenant Matthew Scott, who vowed to stay and protect her after she told him that she was pregnant with Young's child. When Dr. Nicholas Rush sat willingly in the Destiny interface chair in order to learn the master code and control Destiny, TJ was assigned to look over his vitals and report to Colonel Everett Young about the change in his condition. Rush would eventually exit the program before his life was at too much risk. When she was almost 22 weeks along, Lieutenant Matthew Scott, Chloe Armstrong, Eli Wallace, and Master Sergeant Ronald Greer were left behind on a planet. TJ attempted to tell Colonel Everett Young about the pregnancy, but they were interrupted by Dr. Nicholas Rush, bringing them the bad news. She was successful in her second attempt when she blurted it out. She assured Young that he was the father and told him that she planned on keeping it. Young said that he would never suggest to end the pregnancy and promised to work out a way to make things work between them. At that point, Young, Scott, Chloe, and Dr. Park were the only ones aware of the parentry of the baby. By the time Destiny left the galaxy, TJ became visibly pregnant and no longer wore her usual uniform because of it. When one of the ship's faster-than-light engines exploded, causing Destiny to shake violently, injuring several people, her fellow officers and civilians became concerned with her, but she insisted that she was fine. Later, following the return of Matthew Scott, Chloe Armstrong, and Eli, Destiny was able to dial a planet back in the galaxy. TJ requested to check out the planet, since she wanted to leave Destiny anytime she can, also claiming maternal instinct, should the ship be stranded forever. However, she had to stay on board when it was discovered that the Nakai had been using the planet to track Destiny. The ship was repaired and jumped into FTL before the aliens could take control of the ship. Sometime after Destiny arrived at the new galaxy, some members started exhibiting hallucinations, including Matthew Scott, Chloe Armstrong, Vanessa James, Dr. Dale Volker, and Airman Dunning. Eventually, TJ discovered an alien tick embedded in their scalps after their previous off-world mission. Using the squiggler venom, she was able to remove the bug safely from those who were infected with it. The crew held a baby shower for her sometime after that. She was given a baby-size USAF shirt sewn by Chloe Armstrong and a Troy built out of scrap by Sergeant Hunter Riley. After the shower, she was depressed at the notion of her child not having a normal life aboard Destiny, but Chloe assured her that many on the crew would be there to help her. After receiving credible information from Colonel David Telford concerning an impending attack from the Lucian Alliance, Colonel Everett Young ordered the military personnel to prepare. TJ was ordered to stay in the infirmary to tend to any wounded during the battle. While she tended to Telford, who was in Dr. Nicholas Rush's body, the Lucian Alliance strike team arrived from an Icarus-like planet, along with Rush, who was in Telford's body. When the Lucian Alliance with Rush boarded the Destiny, Rush and Telford returned to their own bodies due to the Stargate travel. Rush, against TJ's wishes, left to find Young. While TJ gave chase, she was captured by several Lucian Alliance soldiers and brought to the gate room as a hostage. Kiva, the commander, was prepared to execute her when Telford reasoned to keep her alive, citing her usefulness as a medic. Kiva wanted to see if this was true by sending her to her lieutenant, Vero, who was wounded during the attack. TJ was able to stabilize him and later tended to the others wounded, including Sergeant Hunter Riley. When Kiva herself was shot by Telford, she was forced to treat her. Upon hearing all military personnel will be gathered together by Danik, TJ refused to treat Kiva further. Then Airman Chen struggled with one of the Alliance soldiers' weapons. During the fight, TJ was shot in the abdomen and collapsed unconscious. When she awoke, TJ found herself in a wooden cabin on Eden, her baby safe in a bassinet next to her bed. She was greeted by Dr. Robert Kane, who explained to her that the cabin suddenly appeared, a gift from the obelisk builders to survive the winter. The aliens had transported TJ and her baby to safety and mended her wound, and though he doesn't understand how, Kane is aware of everything that is happening on Destiny. When the two other former expedition members, Dana and Peter, arrived to see the baby, Kane and TJ went for a walk. Kane showed her a phenomenon in the sky, similar in appearance to a nebula or the Northern Lights. Kane thanked TJ for going back to the ship so that the others could stay on the planet. He explained that this is why the aliens chose to bring her baby to the planet. However, TJ has made her choice. While the baby can stay, TJ must return to the ship. Distraught, she ran back to the cabin to find her baby. In the cabin, TJ, in honor of her mother, named her baby Carmen. Kane reassured her that the baby will always be taken care of, and explained to her why no one would believe her story. A different series of events occurred aboard Destiny, from the perspective of everyone else. TJ had been unconscious since her injury. Doctors brought to the ship from Earth via the long-range communication stones were able to save TJ's life, but were unable to save the baby. Kane tells TJ that it is up to her to decide whether the baby remaining on the planet is a blessing or a curse. He said goodbye and TJ awoke on Destiny. Camille Ray told TJ that her baby had died. Sometime later, when the ship had arrived at its intended destination, TJ walked to the observation deck and saw the same spatial phenomenon she had witnessed on the planet Eden. The revelation that Destiny can interfere with the crew's unconscious minds makes these events of further dubious authenticity. Shortly after the invasion, she was part of the team that was sent to an unnamed planet in the Ancient Shuttle to replenish the food and water supply. During re-entry, the shuttle lost power and crashed on the planet. After TJ, Matthew Scott, and the rest of the team unburied the Stargate, she returned to Destiny. Upon the return of the settlers that they left behind on Eden without Carmen, TJ came to terms once and for all that she indeed lost Carmen when she was shot in the Alliance invasion.